mister, can you help us out?
Gee, mister, did you play basketball as a kid?
Well, actually I did. Back when I was about you guys' age, 62 years ago, out in the Midwest in the state of Iowa. It was a long time ago, but I remember it almost like it was yesterday. It was cold in those late days of February 1953 as a small caravan of 3 cars left the St. Mary's parking area behind the high school for a little Iowa town quaintly called Goose Lake. In these cars were 12 young boys of the Clinton St. Mary's basketball team.
The lead car, a new 1953 Chevy Coupe, was driven by its proud owner, a young first-year coach by the Croatian name Galatic, and 5 of his senior players, Jack Dermody, Jim Hyde, Dick Lingle, Dave Junker, and George McAndrews. Trailing were 2 other cars driven by Father Morrissey, St. Mary's assistant pastor and previous basketball coach of the Fighting Irish. His passengers were players Tom Montgomery, John Piper, Tom Peterson, Tom McAndrews, younger brother of George, and Joel Sadler, the team manager. Last in the caravan was an older Pontiac, driven by former coach Bob Lonergan. His passengers were Joe Shanahan, John Lingle, freshman brother of Dick, Lauren Hyde, and Bob Bloom. The contingent was heading for the Iowa Class A sectional tournament to play their first game against LeClaire, the first step in an unknown string of 10 games that would determine the 1953 Iowa Boys State Champions. 980 other schools across the vast farm country of Iowa were also competing that week to earn advancement to the next rung of the yearly spectacle, hoping to achieve the dream of being crowned the best basketball team in the state. Unknown to these 12 boys and their coach, that 10-game journey to that dream was about to take root. The LeClaire win sets up a rematch the following Friday with crosstown rival Lions. The Irish win a 1-point squeaker on a last-second 30-foot jump shot by Captain Dick Lingle and sweep the series 3-0, advancing to the district tourney at Washington Junior High the next week. Remarkably, this was the first time St. Mary's had ever advanced to a state district contest. Something happened in that Lions win. The starting 5 seemed to find a new rhythm that had been lacking in the regular season. The finely honed 3-2 zone defense, which had gained in effectiveness through the previous 4 months, was now becoming the ignition of a fast break offense. The frontline defense of Hyde, Junker, and Lingle was both quick and fast. The rebounding dominance of the McAndrews brothers suddenly was finding quick outlet passes to the downcourt flight of that front trio, resulting in many scores. Gradually, this team was finding itself. A new confidence was quietly building. This fast break formula would prove decisive in the tougher brackets ahead. After dispensing with Maquoketa in the first district matchup, the Irish move on to play the Illawarra champion DeWitt, who had beaten St. Mary's 51-50 3 weeks earlier. Building on their new defensive offense, St. Mary's soundly defeats DeWitt 61-41 to advance to the giant University of Iowa Fieldhouse, where they were to confront one of the best teams in the state, a pre-tournament favorite to take it all, a highly touted and heavily favored Marion powerhouse. With over 8,000 fans watching, the 2 teams engage in one of the best-played contests of the 1953 Iowa tournament. The Irish prevail on the heroic efforts of Lingle and George McAndrews, in a tension-laden double overtime war, decided by clutch free throws and a fast break layup. The next morning, Clinton St. Mary's greets readers of sports pages all across the Hawkeye State. Just who were these upstarts? What happened to Marion, the first favorite to fall to the whims of March? Next, it was revenge time against diocesan champion Burlington Catholic, who had taken advantage of late-game Irish mistakes to gain sovereignty in that mid-season Catholic Classic. The Irish gathered themselves after the post-Marion exhaustion and dispensed with Burlington Catholic. Suffering from an acute case of the flu, Dave Junker comes off the bench in the decisive last minutes to lead the Irish to a 54-47 victory. Still playing in the shadow of their big neighbor, powerhouse Clinton High, St. Mary's begins to garner respect from the sports pundits, but a respect seasoned with a large dose of skepticism. With Marion now on the sidelines, Clinton's River Kings were moving to prominence in office pools. St. Mary's would be fun to write about in weekend columns, but the novelty of a small Catholic giant killer would soon be lost in the dustbins of the tournament as the parochial upstart moves on to the final venue of it all, the Sweet 16. Just getting to this paragon of boyhood dreams would satisfy all the needed content for grandfather tales to adoring grandchildren 60 years hence. But now 16 of the best were about to engage in a final test of high school basketball supremacy. To no one's surprise, Little Clinton St. Mary's was a decided underdog to legendary Murray Weir's Class AA East Waterloo in the upper bracket of the pairings, but something unfortunate had happened in the lower bracket of the Iowa City substate. Our Clinton High School neighbors were being taken to a fiercely fought overtime against St. Ambrose of Davenport. A few St. Mary's fans had begun cheering for the other Catholic school in the tournament. To their everlasting credit, the St. Mary's cheerleaders, Holly, Horace, Lingle, and Lubeck, take to the floor in the waning minutes to cheer with their Clinton sisters as the River Kings win a tense battle to advance alongside the Irish to the Sweet 16. The next day, Father Morrissey reinforces the cheerleaders' show of community spirit by writing an open letter in the Herald, pledging St. Mary's total support to both Clinton teams. This tone would be important in the weeks ahead as the teams advance together into the vaunted Elite 16. The Associated Press picks Clinton High to win it all. St. Mary's makes no list of top finishers. The Irish take to the floor of the Iowa Fieldhouse shortly after noontime on St. Patrick's Day, 12-point underdogs in that morning's Des Moines Register. Though the floodlights above the 90-foot hardwood were burning, sunlight from the overhead glass provided most of the lighting for the 2:45 tip-off. Coach Galatich's green bow tie signaled his one-day conversion to Irish ancestry. The Clinton Herald proclaimed, "For the Irish to succeed in stopping East will, in the eyes of experts, be a major miracle." The Trojans were riding their hottest streak of their season, were winners of their Big Six conference, and their high-scoring offense had been dubbed the Fire Wagon Five. The Irish had themselves averaged 61 points, holding opponents to just 49. Unstated in most of the news was the exceptional speed and quickness that the Irish possessed. These athletic qualities extended to all of the team, including Dermody and Peterson, who saw much action and led the supporting cast of Montgomery, Shanahan Connolly, John Lingle, and Lauren Hyde. Dermody and Peterson had been crucial in the march to Iowa City and would be equally as crucial in the tense playing moments ahead. The Irish also had been seasoned in the vast Fieldhouse, playing 2 previous games before crowds approaching 10,000. But above all, the Irish loved their underdog role. So much was hoped for them, so little was expected. And it was, after all, St. Patrick's Day, and that patron of good luck was smiling down on the gallant band of Irishmen as they faced off against the hugely favored Trojans. Clinton St. Mary's oust East streamed across the sports pages of Iowa the next morning. A nervous whisper of concern began to sweep the offices of the Iowa High School Athletic Association in Boone. In this 1950s Bible Belt of the Midwest, for the first time in tournament history, a Catholic school was knocking at the door of Iowa sports history. Were Iowans ready for a Catholic team replete with sign of the cross free throws and Hail Mary huddles? Religion was very important to Iowans, and Catholics were only a small percentage of the state's Christian population, still viewed by many as a cult. How would a Catholic school run at the prize of high school basketball be received? But the worry subsides as the path to that eventuality is contemplated. 3 improbable and demanding victories. The odds against St. Mary's surviving these odds so great as to dismiss the entire thought. Sioux Center was next up on the Irish gauntlet. The Iowa Fieldhouse was now totally oversold, and more than 15,000 fans packed the aging structure as the taller Indians took on the task of quelling this Irish uprising. The scoreboard above the players' bench announces another spectacular ending for the Irish, 51-39. The talk outside the stadium was now about an all-Clinton final. They would pit the emerging favorite Clinton High against their friendly cousins, perched atop the hill 6 blocks to the east. Plain against Lingle, Vogt against George, Farwell against Tom, Cunningham against Tide, and Honeywell against Junker. A celebration was now brewing for Clintonians. Not one, but 2 hometown teams vying to decide the championship of the state for this excited Mississippi River town. A no-lose scenario claims the Clinton Herald as civic pride overwhelms this city of 30,000. 2 local teams going for the biggest prize in Iowa basketball. The stage is set. Clinton St. Mary's takes on 3-time Sweet 16 power Roland, and their all-state, soon-to-be All-American Gary Thompson in the first game of the semifinal matchups that would determine who played in Saturday's final. Roland is favored, but only by a few points. The Irish were now gaining genuine respect in press row, and the many fans who had never heard of the parochial school and its team were taking notice. No one expects them to win it all, but they are playing exciting ball and prevailing against the better-known and favored teams. They were the perennial underdogs, and the underdogs carry a certain romantic aura in sports. They played hard and they played clean. No cheap shots, no bad language. They represented more than themselves. They represented their school, their parents, their classmates, and their hometown. They showed a quiet and mannerly decorum as they moved about in the excitement of Iowa City. The lights dim, and the announcer introduces the starting lineups. Captain Dick Lingle and George McAndrews shake hands with Thompson and Tweet. Jim Hyde, Dave Junker, and Tom McAndrews join them, and the battle begins. Thompson is all he's advertised to be. In the first quarter, he pummels St. Mary's defense with 25-foot bombs, shooting from beyond St. Mary's traditional defense zone, causing concern to Coach Galatich. Roland takes an early lead. Galatich instructs his backmen, George and Tom, to extend themselves further into the corners where Thompson had proven most deadly. 2 minutes into the second quarter, Thompson takes a pass in the deep right corner and prepares to launch another deadly shot when George comes racing from his slot aside the free throw line and rams the just launched ball back into the surprised face of Thompson. Shortly after, Hyde harasses Tweet, steals the ball, and fires it to Junker as Dave outraces everyone for a twisting layup at the other end. The defense extends and adjusts. Tom drains 2 long 25-foot bombs, and the game settles into a close contest. St. Mary struggles back from a 52-49 deficit with less than a minute and a half to play. Junker drills a jump shot, and George McAndrews sinks 2 critical free throws in the waning minute to clinch a thrilling 57-53 victory. George scores 23 for his best offensive show of the season. Lingle hits 13 and Tom 12 to continue the pattern of offense that was now taking the Irish to the game of their dreams, the game to decide who would forever reign as the 1953 Iowa State champions. The Cinderella team had once again prevailed, and the stage was set for Saturday night. But the all-Clinton final was not to be. In a bruising overtime game, the River Kings go down to Ottumwa. Sadness sweeps Clinton fans as St. Mary's cheerleaders again take to the floor with their Clinton High sisters to lead the tumultuous throngs in the closing minutes. Now it would be the Cinderella team that would carry the colors of Clinton into Saturday's championship game. Saturday morning, the St. Mary's team wakes early to head to Mass. These were devout Catholic boys with deep Christian beliefs. They lived their religion. They prayed they would play their best and not bring dishonor to their school or families. No one knows what Jim Hyde ate that morning or how he slept that Friday night. He was relaxed and joking with the team as they ate their early dinner at the Jefferson Hotel. The tournament all-star team was announced that afternoon. Dick Lingle was named on the first team, and George and Tom McAndrews were named to the second team. Had the sports writers foreseen the events of the next 12 hours, Jim Hyde would certainly have joined that honored list. The five of them stood silently facing their opponents at center court in the massive field house. 16,000 fans looked down as the lights dimmed and a lone beam shone on the 10 players surrounding center court. This was the dream. They were minutes away from playing in the biggest game of their young lives. The anthem fades, and they're each introduced by the public announcer. They shake hands with their foes, and the game is underway. Most of the 16,000 fans are cheering for the Irish. They were the underdogs again, and the fans were looking for drama and excitement. They were about to get it. They proceeded to play like never before. They ran, rebounded, passed, blocked shots, played defense tenaciously, and shot with a confidence that by the fourth quarter had totally demoralized Ottumwa. The lead stretches to 21 points. Jim Hyde dazzles the 16,000 fans with his long arching shots and scores 19 points. The clock winds down to the most shocking upset in the history of the Iowa tournament. St. Mary's 61, Ottumwa 44. Unknown at that moment, this game and this championship would be the last ever that crowned a single team as the Iowa State champion. Henceforth, all tournaments would be played within 4 separate divisions, yielding 4 separate champions. No Class A team would ever meet a team from a school 5 or 6 times larger. No more Cinderella upsets. No more drama of a small unknown underdog sweeping its way to the crown of all high school basketball. St. Mary's made history, and that history is now writ in the halls of the Iowa High School Athletic Association. No one can erase that momentous evening and that cold of Iowa winter decades ago,
when a small bunch of Irish boys and their youthful coach swept the field of Iowa's most talented teams. They will be forever known as the only 1953 Iowa State High School basketball champions. And that was my story. We were a little Cinderella team that took on a school 7 times larger than we were and beat them for the championship of all Iowa. 980 schools started and only one prevailed, and St. Mary's was that one. I'm sorry for drifting back, but it was, and still is for me, an Irish dream that happened many years ago. It still seems like yesterday.